I'd like to welcome everybody, and I want to call the regular commission meeting to order for Tuesday, May the 14th, 2013. If you do have a cell phone, please turn it off or put it on vibrate. If you're watching from home and you would like to see the presentation from downtown Coffeyville, if you go to the city's website, we do have the presentation on there, and you can actually look at it through your computer. The invocation tonight will be given by Reverend John Collins with the First United Methodist Church. And if you would please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Holy God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as we pause to ask your blessing upon this gathering, I want to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to serve and live in this community for the last 8 years. Coffeyville faces many challenges, but you have blessed this city with good people, and I pray that they might continue to be a blessing to one another.
All right.
Remind us, O Lord, for living in this great country, we are inclined to forget. Remind us that no one can serve two masters, and that you are a jealous God who has the right to our complete and undivided allegiance. Let those with ears hear, O Lord. All of our other attachments and loyalties must be situated beneath our devotion to you. Help us to remember that we can best serve our family, our friends, our community, and our nation when we place you first in our lives, our loyalty, and our love. With that always in mind, God, I thank you for the public servants who are gathered here, for the city commissioners and the city staff members, each and every one of them. I thank you that they love their country enough to serve here, because by God, I can think of no other reason to do so. I thank you that they not only profess this love, but they demonstrate it through their service to this city. I ask that you would bless and keep them, but most of all, I ask that you would guide them to do your will and your work in true fellowship and loving kindness. In Jesus' name, and trusting that the Holy Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words, I pray. Amen.
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 I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. I'd like to start off with the consent agenda items, regular city commission meeting minutes from Tuesday, April the 23rd, 2013, and the 2013 appropriation ordinance number AO-13-08 in the amount of $774,551.68. Commissioners, do you have any questions? None for me. Don? No. Gooding?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to approve consent agenda items, regular city commission meeting minutes of Tuesday, April 23rd, and the 2013 appropriation ordinance number AO-13-08 in the amount of $774,551.68.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Castlewood.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Okay, under regular agenda items, public hearings, presentations, and proclamations. Proclamation declaring May the 25th, 2013 as Buddy Poppy Day. Is anybody here representing the American Legion?
Yes.
If you please stand up here. Chris, right up here real close so the camera can see. Whereas the sacrifices of those who have lost their lives, their health, and their livelihood as a result of their military service are rightly the concern of all citizens, and whereas the American Legion Auxiliary adopted the poppy as its memorial flower, which pays tribute to the war dead and aids the living veterans and their families, and whereas the poppy as a memorial flower for the American war dead is a tradition which began in the years following the First World War, and whereas the American Legion Auxiliary poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, the proceeds of this worthwhile fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of the disabled and needy veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. Now, therefore, I, David George, Mayor of the City of Coffeyville, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May the 25th, 2013 as Poppy Day, and do hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support through the purchase of poppies on the day set aside for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for the sacrifices of our honored dead. I urge all patriotic citizens to wear the poppy as mute evidence of our gratitude for the men of this country who have risked or lost their lives to fulfill the obligations of the American citizens.
Thank you, Mayor, and this is for you.
Oh, thank
Is
you.
it all right if Penny passes out copies for
Yes,
everyone?
please.
Thank you.
Here's my donation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good, you doing okay? Good.
The next thing I'd like to do is do a presentation to Virgil O. Horn, Jr.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Horn, you don't know how proud it makes me to be able to present this to you. The things you have done for this community are just insurmountable. You served as a mayor during one of the most trying times of the community. And if it wasn't for your leadership, I think this community would have never come back like it has. I personally thank you very much as a citizen, as a friend, and I want you to always know that I always considered you a mentor. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, and to the commissioners and to the staff, I'd like to thank the public at large, our citizens. I'd like to thank the staff. It's been a pleasure to work with the staff as well as commissioners, the present and the former commissioners. Thank you again for such a great honor. I'm made humble. Wow.
The next item is a presentation by Downtown Coffeyville Incorporated. Shelley Posh, Executive Director of Downtown Coffeyville, will make the presentation. Thank you, ladies.
Hello, Commission, Mayor, city staff. Thank you so much for allowing us, permitting us to be here this evening and to give our annual presentation. As soon as Chris is ready, he'll get it all. So, the pressure's on. I'll give you a little once-over before we start. My name is Shelley Pash with Downtown Coffeyville. I'm the executive director. We were established in July of 2007. I became the active director in October of 2007. We were a brainchild of the chamber because you get a lot of people going around saying who's in charge of downtown? Why isn't the city doing something with downtown? Why isn't the chamber doing something with downtown? So it got to the point where they said we need to actually focus and look at this, because for 35 years, nobody was focusing on downtown. And I can stand up here and tell you how things will be, but you already know what it would look like. That's why we brought a bunch of pictures, some before and afters, very evident photos of what it looked like just last year when a building was covered up, and now the pristine brick is out there and able to be seen. The streets are, that's really far in advance, but that's okay. The streets, there was nobody in the downtown, and now we see one of these, I think it's this one right here, that has a bunch of people in the streets because of our movie nights, because of our Fun Fest, because of various different things that we have. Do you want me to turn the light? Okay. Thanks. So I gave you the little once-over, and like I said, I'm not going to try and talk too much. Our mission is to strengthen the downtown economy and preserve the historic character of its buildings. And we work with 4 teams. The 4 teams report to the board of directors, as well I do. At this time, I would like to welcome some of the people in our audience that are here representing our board of directors, our downtown business owners, or our volunteers. So if you would stand up, please. And without them and our volunteers and the financial investment, we can't do this without any of them. We have all representation here this evening, so thank you to them for helping us. I knew I'd get one in. To give you a little, again, a once-over of what the teams do, the design team, they're the ones that enhance the visual quality of the physical environment through historic preservation. What that means in layman's terms, they make it prettier. They help with the flowers being planted on the downtown plaza. They are working with the facade projects right now. That at this point, we're going to have 5 facade projects going on this summer, which is huge. It's just huge. So we're so excited that that can happen. Our organization team, they establish the consensus. They are our fundraisers, and they help sustain our organization. They help make sure that we have that investment from all of our members, whether they're from the downtown or whether they're on 11th Street or whether it's the city of Coffeyville. You guys invest in us, and we can't do this without you. The promotions team promotes the downtown itself through the spring retail promotion, the fall retail promotions. We have the feel-good movie nights and events like that, the Halloween Spooktacular, the Cookies with Santa, things like that. Economic restructuring, they're really our thinkers, and they retain the businesses that we have that are already down there, and we try and obtain others to diversify our district. These are the 4 main work plans that were the priorities that were defined by the board of directors, and those are doled out to each committee, whether the design, organization, promotions, or ER. At this point, do you have any questions? That's a little bit of the once-over for some of those, or a refresher course for some of you that do know about it, and like I said, just something to focus on. So at this point, when looking at the things that we have done since 2007, we've welcomed 38 new businesses. That's huge. That's a huge impact that we've had. We have 110 new jobs, close to 9,500 volunteer hours since 2007. It's just fantastic to hear those numbers, because there is no other organization that will show you numbers broke down like that. And we get these numbers through me emailing out and visiting the businesses, and our teams visiting the businesses saying, what can we help with? What can we do for you? And finding out what they've done on that $10.5 million of total reinvestment. That's a lot of the businesses that you see here. That's Medical Lodges investing and recreating a brand-new building, as well as Windsor Event Center. They saved a building right there. We have Chatterbox Gifts and Envy Salon, and that actually was one of the buildings that the city of Coffeyville stepped in and helped so it wasn't falling down. But the pictures are to be worth 1,000 words. They just really are, so you can just see the befores and afters. And if you haven't been downtown, I encourage you to go down and not just see what the businesses look like on the outside, but really see what they look like on the inside as well. Ribbons and Lace is they've just done a fantastic job on the outside, on the inside, and she's one of our facade projects finishing her windows this spring. So the total reinvestment also throws in new construction, like the mill supply, as well as reconstruction of the Dale Apartments. So these are some of the before and afters. Everybody kind of remembers the cheese grater that was on there, initially for many, many, many years is what I always heard it as. So it's just pretty impressive to see what these look like now, throwing an awning up there. But we do need to make sure that we definitely ask people to follow up, to make sure that they're continuing with that. Like I said, we'll have 5 facade projects going on this summer, so it's something where people will see. One of them has already started some of the work on their building. We had another one starting today. That's what it looked like before. That's what it looks like now. It's so pretty. She's done just an excellent job. And I can stand up here and tell you, but I don't need to remind you what it looked like without anybody paying attention for 35 years. What I can tell you, the biggest impact that this is going to have collectively with us working together is getting those new jobs, getting those new businesses into our downtown, working with the youth to have the involvement with them, having the building rehabs that are going on, and ultimately it comes down to the quality of life. And that's what we all want. We want better for ourselves. We want better for the youth coming up. I had a meeting over at the Boys and Girls Club today working on a cleanup downtown. We had worked on this last year, seeing the, working from April to October and just making sure and just having a little bit more pride in the community. So we're really excited for the progress that we've made. That's where we're at with our presentation, and we invite you again to invest in us because we can't do it without you. And just like I said, not everybody is a downtown business or property. We have members all over. We even have some that are coming out of Independence as well. So when people say there are no businesses downtown, it's very frustrating. So we do want to just recognize that we do have 28 businesses that are open on Saturdays. I think my number changed. There might be 16 businesses open past 5:30, or past 5 o'clock. But it's just nice to actually get those numbers out and just to remember. I know I continually say those, but it's nice to actually have those and to be able to reiterate that to people when they're talking down and you want to keep the positiveness up. So we're on that forward progress, and we appreciate. And I invite you now, if you do have any other questions at this time.
Shelley, not so much a question as an observation. The fact that people say to you, well, there's no business downtown, and you get frustrated over that. Might I suggest that that's an information, advertising, and marketing issue?
Mm-hmm. And that's where we've done that,
That the
yes.
city, the people just need to be aware of exactly who's down there and what the products are that they're selling. I know the individual businesses are responsible for their own advertising, but they need to be encouraged to do that.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, because that's the first thing I know a lot of people do cut is their advertising budget. but we have a great relationship with the Coffeyville Journal. And I have to thank Glenn again for, we just wrote an article that we updated from the holiday season that we asked Glenn to put in just recently, and it was in the May 7th edition, and it was fantastic. I nearly fell off my chair because it was the entire right side of the paper, and it was all broke down from alterations to hair salons to weddings, events, and everything like that. So it is nice, but I do agree with you, and that's where I never get tired of saying how many businesses are down there and what's open, but I appreciate that, yes.
And I'd also comment, probably for the rest of the commission, we were happy to be able to reinstitute the funding that had previously been cut out for downtown Coffeyville in the budget process. We're glad to be able to reinstitute that for you.
Awesome, thanks. We appreciate it. Questions, other questions?
Gary, do you have any comments you'd like to make? Your tour?
Well, I know that the folks from downtown Coffeyville and the business owners in particular have invested a lot in the downtown area, and the city has as well. We're making substantial investments to our own facilities downtown. We've even got a meeting with the architects tomorrow to talk about improvements to the Youth Activity Center, City Hall, fire station. Myself and our Public Works Director, Chuck Shively, even walked around downtown today looking at the things that are public infrastructure that we own. Some trees that need some attention, some bushes that are dead that we need to cut out, some places where we need to do a better job with stump grinding, street sweeping, all kinds of different things. He's going to get together with his staff next week, and we're going to put together a plan to tackle that. And I would also put in a plug for the city and the community and say we did a great job of bringing people to downtown over the weekend.
Heck yeah.
And I recognize some of the folks here who put in a lot of hard work for that as well. And we need to get some of the back sides of some of the buildings cleaned up too, because when you bring people into an area like that, the back side becomes pretty visible.
Hey, I'm successful on the front side right now, and so I'm pretty happy with that.
But we do enjoy working with the Chamber of Commerce and with downtown Coffeyville to try and improve the economic climate in the community, and I definitely see things are headed in the right direction.
Great.
Yay.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it. And all the hard work you do and all your staff, we really appreciate it. It's making a big difference in the city of Coffeyville. Before we go on, I think I'm going to step out of order here just for a second. I would like to discuss or talk about what happened this last weekend. I personally was not here because I was out of town for Mother's Day, but all the pictures I saw and everything else, Tammy, Chief, everybody, I was so proud of everything that happened. I could not believe how the people came out to help the city of Coffeyville. That was fantastic. And I hope we can just keep building on this thing and going and going and going. It made me feel very proud of my community, very proud. Okay, comments from the public?
I'd like to tack onto that. And so
Okay.
if we could have the chief and Tammy and anyone who's volunteered this weekend to stand up for a round of applause.
Yeah, bingo. I'll go for that. Moving on, comments from the public, and I forgot to do it at the first of the meeting. Anytime anybody from the public would like to make a comment while we're discussing something, please step to the podium. Name and address is all we request. If you would like to share some ideas with us, problems, accolades, we will take it all. But anytime during the meeting, you're welcome to come up here. It does not have to be in this specific part of the meeting. We were very open about this. So would anybody like to talk? Comments from the public. Mary, you going to tell us about the farmer's market?
You bet.
Great.
You know, this weather-wise has been a yo-yo spring for the farmers. And the poor tomato plants are planted. They're not doing very much because they don't have sweaters. I'm Mary Wilson, by the way, who gets involved in things. But I just wanted to remind everybody that the farmers market is open now. It was open this evening, and I attended last Saturday, so it's been going on for over a week. There are a few vegetables, and there's some homemade jellies, like watermelon jelly, and there's some salsa, homemade. And so there's a number of things throughout the summer, and I urge everybody to visit and support the farmers because they also are customers of Coffeyville. Thank you.
Mary, could you
Yes.
tell us where it's located?
It is located in Walter Johnson Park. It is on Tuesday afternoon, starting at 4 until about 7. And it is open on Saturday at 7 and runs to about 11.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it's good parking, they have shade and a lot of good fellowship along with a lot of good vegetables and some fruits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else from the public who would like to get up and say something? For you? You can talk about it now, Peter, or you can talk about it when we bring it up for discussion. We're going to discuss it, if you want to wait.
It's up to you. Wanna wait?
Okay.
Thank you, Virgil.
Okay, we'll move on to old business then, if nobody else. Okay, old business. Ordinance number S-1304, second reading of an ordinance to authorize the levy of a 1/2 cent sales tax. There's been no change from the first reading.
Move to approve ordinance number S-13-04 for approval.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Edwards and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve ordinance number S-13-04 for approval. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Kessler.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business. Discussion and action to appoint 2 people to the new 3-year terms on the Senior Citizens Activity Center Board. The applicants are Donald Bilby and Hugh Kimmons. City Clerk Cindy Price will make comments. Are either one of these gentlemen happen to be here in the meeting? No? Okay. Cindy?
Mayor and Commissioners, we did advertise this board, and we had 2 applicants. They are current applicants, and if you'll notice in your staff report, they have both served 3-3-year terms. We do have a resolution which limits the terms that people can serve on boards. However, and we have done this in the past, we can suspend the rules and reappoint them if you so choose. They're both very interested in continuing to serve on the activity boards. And this would be for a 3-year term.
Gentlemen, can I have a motion to suspend the
I got a
rules?
question real quick, if you
Okay.
don't mind. Cindy, instead of just giving the 3-year, can we do an interim deal where until we can find somebody else, or do we have to do this?
The way the ordinance is set up, it is for 3-year terms.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically new terms, they're not unexpired terms, which we can do short terms if they're an unexpired term. But this is for a regular 3-year term.
We've advertised, you said several different entities that we advertised in. Obviously, that's, comes at some cost, is that correct?
We don't do, we do notices instead of advertising. We
Okay.
have so many boards, if we did advertising, that would get expensive.
Okay.
We do it on all our advertising or notice means. Channel 13, we do notices to all the papers, to the radio station, put something out on the website, your Facebook,
Somebody's got to put that in there, so.
channel 13. My mic getting on?
Nevertheless, the effort, what I'm getting at is the effort has been put forth to
Correct.
try to get people to apply for these boards. The city's put forth the effort. These are the only two gentlemen that have applied for these boards. And obviously, after they've, can't recall how many terms you said that they've,
They've each served 3 terms.
okay, obviously they're interested,
They are very.
or they wouldn't reapply. So I make the motion that we suspend the rules and that we appoint these two gentlemen for the 2 terms that they applied for.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to appoint Don Belby and Hugh Pimmons to new 3-year terms on the Senior Citizens Activity Center Board, serving to June 1st, 2016.
And include in the notes there, in the minutes there, that it was a motion to suspend the rules regarding the term appointments.
Say that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Next item, discussion and action to appoint one person to serve an unexpired term on the Planning Commission to January 1, 2015. The applicant is Nelson Christian. Nelson, you want to get up and, so we can see you again? I know. Hopefully you won't have to do this again.
Hi, I'm Nelson Christian, and I'm applying for the position. And I think my background and experience, which I listed on the application, speaks that I feel like I'm qualified to be a participant on this.
Thank you for applying. Thank you very much. Anybody questions?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to appoint Nelson Christian to an unexpired term on the Planning and Zoning Commission until January the 1st, 2015.
Second.
Who seconded? Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Castler to appoint Nelson Christian to an unexpired term on the Planning Commission serving to January 1st, 2015. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Nelson.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, resolution number R-13-42, a resolution to declare the city of Coffeyville eligible to submit a Safe Routes to School application. Police Chief Tony Celeste will make comments. Good evening, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The city, or the police department, on behalf of the city, is working on and would like to submit an application for a grant through the Safe Routes to School Act. Part of doing that requires, obviously, approval from the city commission. This grant is a 20% match, so based on the grant that we anticipate submitting, we anticipate the city's cost to be up to $5,000. So what we're asking tonight is a resolution in support that the city commission will give us authority to submit application.
I make the motion to approve the Safe Route to Schools authorization grant for the police department to apply for that grant. And I don't know what number it is. It's R-13-42.
I'll second it. Thank you,
And
Chief.
just a short discussion, if Chief, could you give us some details and explain just exactly what we're going to get with this if the grant is approved?
Sure. What we're proposing are some traffic calming devices around the elementary school and on 8th Street. There'll be the flashing school zone signs is what we're applying for in this grant.
All right, thank you.
Chief, is it just community elementary, or is it also going to be places like Head Start?
At this time, the anticipation is community elementary and along 8th Street to cover that for both the high school and the middle schools is what we've anticipated. We have not looked at Head Start at this time, but we'd certainly be willing to.
I just know there are some parents who have walked their kids to that. place, and it'd be nice to have some safe routes for them as well.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Mayor George to approve resolution number R-13-42 for adoption. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye. Resolution R-13-43, a resolution to execute a permanent driveway easement to Chris and Catherine Cornell. Engineering Superintendent Scott Massman will make comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. How are you this evening?
Good.
City staff was contacted by letter, which is in your packet, requesting a driveway easement across some of the property that we own out by Veterans Memorial Stadium. There is a drawing in your packet which shows the configuration of the new driveway. This terrain is very rough and very thick in vegetation. He's wanting really, and he is here tonight if you'd like to have him come up and address why he wants this. But the area that is his driveway now exits through a parking lot for Roosevelt Trail, and it's kindly known as a lover's lane kind of thing, and it has a conflict with his driveway, and so that's really why he's seeking this other route. If you'd like Mr. Williams to come up, or Mr. Cornell, he'd be glad to do that, I'm sure.
Chris, you got anything you want to say?
My wife and I are just seeking a new access onto our property. We purchased a year and a half ago, and we've made residence back there since then. And the parking lot wasn't an issue when we first bought the land, but since we've started living back there, it's become a nuisance. So that's what we're requesting, is to have a new access point to drive back through there and avoid the nonsense that goes on.
I make the motion that we approve resolution R-13-43.
I have some questions first.
Okay.
The existing driveway, that's a current easement? Is that correct?
There's no easement for it, no, it disappeared. It's been there for a number of years.
So you're saying, so the existing driveway is, at this point, was just free access without any legal description
Yes.
or legal
Yeah,
ramifications?
there was never a document for its existence, to my knowledge.
Okay, and what's the impact on the property itself that's owned by the city if this is granted?
I would say minimal. The land is very severely sloping, and there's a lot of vegetation. It's not really worth a whole lot in my mind.
If I recall, basically it's a thicket,
Yeah.
and it's slopey and just covered with rocks and brush.
The first part of it's flat. What concerns me is splitting this piece of property. I personally would like to see us sell it to him, and it's just my personal opinion. That way, we don't have to maintain it or anything else on either side of it. It's up to Kristen to take care of it.
Mayor, that has been discussed, and I think preferable.
Are you talking about all the city land between, that's North Buckeye and his current property boundary on the west?
Which would be the section line.
Yeah. It's all this in here and this. And we don't have it all, but biggest chunk of it.
Is that something you're interested in?
I would be interested in it. What I was seeking now is just a different access. But ultimately, I would love to own the frontage of my property down the road.
Would you like to buy the football stadium? It's just to the west of that.
I think it does two things. If we can work out some kind of a purchase agreement, it does two things. It gets the land off of our hands, and it insulates you from us selling it to somebody else down the road, or having somebody maybe build in front of you, or do something else with the land that might hurt the value of your property in some way. I'm reaching here, Paul. How can we, and I've talked to Chris a little bit, and I know Chris right at the moment does not want or can't purchase it, but would like to down the road. Is there something legally we can do to facilitate this so that?
You could do a contract for deed. I guess the question is going to be the price. I would think we would want to have it appraised, just to make sure it's an arm's length transaction. You know, selling surplus property like this can be delicate sometimes. Other citizens may say, hey, why didn't I get a chance?
That's what I was gonna say. I think that if you are looking to sell it, it should be offered for sale to anybody, not just one particular person. Because, you know, I know it's probably more valuable to you, but Joe Schmo, for whatever reason, may think that he has an interest in it. And I think that for the time being, until those logistics can be worked out, I think he's just wanting to put a driveway there.
I think if you had the appraisal done and determine the price, you could sell it to him without complaints. But, you know, and obviously it's adjacent to his property, so he's unique in that regard. You know, if we wanted to explore that, we could do a contract for deed, so you'd make him directly to the city. We would be the lender, which may not be desirable.
And it wouldn't have to be that
Do you
entire
know
tract.
even how much acreage it would be and an estimate on what the cost would be on what the city has there?
We could calculate that.
I would.
Well, given that you do have, although it may be a nuisance access, I believe was the word you used at one point, would you be amenable to tabling this particular issue until we could get a rough estimate or get some numbers on what costs would be for the property, and then revisit the issue? And it wouldn't have to be the entire property. I was looking at the map here. It could be from the north edge of your proposed drive south, you know, taking in that chunk of the property, or some other component that you might want to take a look at. But would you be in favor of tabling this just for now?
We can table it. I would like I've told everybody that's been involved in this, is I would love to own everything and allow the city still to have their parking lot there, but just come out and around and have the frontage, so I could put a nice border fence, clean it up, keep it trimmed, keep it clean, the trees and all the fallen debris cleaned up, and make the hill nice in my area.
I think that benefits
Take pride in my
everybody.
land.
It does.
That does. That's good.
I like the idea.
I move to table, well, we've got a
Well-
motion on the table, don't we?
Would you, Commissioner Williams, would you be willing to withdraw your motion?
I will rescind the motion.
I move that we table resolution number R-13-43 while we do a, what did you call it, Paul? Have an appraisal.
And then work out terms of a contract for deed or something like that.
Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Commissioner Edwards and seconded by Mayor George to table resolution number R-13-43. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Castleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
All right, number 5, Resolution R-13-44. A resolution to authorize change order number 1 and a final pay estimate to Bryant and Bryant Construction for 2012 intersection improvement project. Scott Massman will make comments.
Thank you again, Mayor. Gentlemen, for your consideration this evening is a final change order and final payment to Bryant and Bryant of Halstead, Kansas. These type of projects are balanced by bid items, and it's quantity driven. And in the case of the additional work that was done on this job, a majority of that additional work was done by the fact that we had to move some of our utilities, and by doing so, we had to increase the size of the areas of concrete that were poured. Really, $7,000 on a project of this magnitude is a very small amount as far as a additional amount of work goes, and I think we were well pleased with the way these intersections turned out. The contractor did a great job.
Incidentally, do we have another round of intersections that we're preparing to do?
We do.
How many and where are they at, do you know?
Yes, I do, but I can't remember exactly where they're all at.
Okay.
Fairway is one of them, Tyler at Fairway. Midland and Catalpa, that'd be the 10th and Elm is the big one.
Okay.
And just a comment, more of an observation, the fact that we're being requested to approve this change order for $7,312. This ties in directly to the future discussion later on this evening about the bid process. And just a reminder that although there's a magic number of $25,000 that for change orders, it's supposed, has to come to the commission. I would just remind the city from a departmental standpoint that subsequent change orders and all of these additional increases, requested increases, should be a zero-sum gain from a budgetary standpoint, so that at the end of the year, we're not scrambling trying to find additional funds because we've already approved a whole stack of change orders, and all of a sudden, the department doesn't have enough money left in its coffers to do what it needs to do, so.
I can appreciate what you're saying, but I will tell you that any project that's quantity driven, you're never going to see a project that's going to be built exactly like the plans show and not have any change orders. I've never seen a project like that.
And I've
ever.
seen several of them, too, that have been decreased.
Yes.
You brought them to us where it decreased because it wasn't as much as we thought originally.
And the other component of it is I don't want the city to get into a situation where, and I know this is a reputable contractor, where a bid might have intentionally been lowballed with the intention of coming in with a change order in order to get the bid, and therefore another bidder was knocked out of the park and couldn't participate, or another bidder might have been within a couple of $1,000s, and we took this one because it was just a few thousand under, and now we're requesting to make a $7,000 change order above and beyond what the original bid would have been.
I understand. This contractor came in significantly lower than anybody else, and they are reputable, as you so pointed out.
I really like their
Just
work.
just a point of caution.
Understand.
Okay. I'll move to approve Resolution R-13-44.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve resolution number R-13-44 for adoption. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassel.
Aye.
Next item, ordinance number G-13-02, the first reading of an ordinance to establish a sidewalk dining license. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments, and Peter, if you'd like to make a comment, this is your time.
I'll start out.
Okay?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is the document I prepared following our last discussion about this item and feedback from some of you regarding things you liked or disliked about the Lawrence version of the sidewalk dining license. It's patterned highly after the Lawrence version, so I take no pride of authorship here, but stole a lot of the language. The purpose of this ordinance would be to encourage pedestrian-oriented environment, creating a vibrant and visually attractive streetscape, promoting and stimulating commerce. That's the stated purpose of this ordinance should you choose to pass it. Pursuant to our discussions, the Lawrence version of this ordinance required a license fee to be paid at the rate of $3.50 per square foot. I think you all thought that was excessive, so I am proposing an annual fee of $100 to be paid and not prorated. So if you apply for the license now, it would be $100 and it would be good through December 31st. The process is an application for a sidewalk dining license is made at the city clerk's office on a form to be provided. It contains relevant information about the applicant. I'm just hitting some highlights here. Hopefully you all have had a chance to look it over, but the conditions of getting a license include submitting a site plan with the application. That site plan goes to the city planner's office for review and approval. That site plan has to show the seating configuration, the area that's reserved for pedestrian traffic, the location of railings or barriers that would separate the portion of the sidewalk reserved for pedestrian use. If you think about areas of larger communities that have outside dining like this, usually you see a rail of some sort. The proposed rail or barrier would consist of wrought iron or ornamental metal or other compatible materials that reflect and conform to the character of the area. So hopefully we'll have some attractive divisions there. The licensee is required to comply with all city laws and state laws regarding the sale, possession, and consumption of C&B, cider malt beverages, or alcohol on the premises. And in order to qualify for a license, the licensee would have to derive at least 50% of their gross receipts from the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages. Those are the highlights. Be happy to answer questions.
Peter?
The 6-foot number, where did that come from?
That's from Lawrence, you know, and
Is there anything magical about
there is not.
6 feet?
Just thinking about the area that the pedestrian would travel in, 6 feet might be a bit wide.
How wide is a normal city sidewalk in a residential area, for instance?
3 foot.
Minimum is 4.
So, I mean, that could be reduced.
Reduce that to 4 feet to conform with existing ordinances. And just on the administrative side, having just returned from a League of Kansas Municipalities training session, during the city ordinances section, one of the attorneys there reminded us that for new ordinances, proposed ordinances under the publication requirement, it's not necessary to put the entire ordinance in the paper. Just a legal summary is okay, so long as the ordinance in its entirety is available on the city's website, or hard copy is available for viewing at the city clerk's office.
And we currently do that, Commissioner
Actually
Faulkner.
doing that, and Cindy sends those to me for my review, which actually puts them in the paper.
Peter, you want to come up and make a comment?
One thing while he's making his way to the podium, I will say.
Come on, come on.
was
Come on up.
The Lawrence version required that the licensee submit consent from the adjacent property owners. We talked about that briefly last time, and I thought that was probably then when you talk about renewal, then do you go back to the property owner and get another consent form? So, I mean, in our size of community, I would think that might be a little bit overkill, but if you disagree and you want the consent of the adjacent property owner or the owner of the building, if it happens to be a tenant, then that's something we would.
Was that included in the proposed ordinance?
It would not.
Okay.
Remove those provisions. I'm done.
Sure. The floor is yours. I'm Peter Barrick. I guess since we're talking about 902 South Walnut at this point in time. I own the tavern. We talked about doing outdoor seating years ago. I guess my biggest concern is that I don't think that you guys need all the regulations that you're trying to put on this. I think that from my perspective, that you need to look at it, not trying to regulate the tavern and Dirties and Lannings and Chicks, but rather than regulating what you want for downtown, rather than the individual businesses. That's why I don't, I mean, it doesn't matter to me because we're not going to get anywhere near approaching 50% alcohol. But I don't see why, with all the ordinances that you have, that as long as you have a legitimate business, they shouldn't have the right to sit outside. Obviously, if you do permanent railings, you're going to have to worry about the width of the sidewalk. But we go to San Antonio, you're basically walking through someone's dessert and appetizer course in a lot of places because they just have tables everywhere. No railings whatsoever. The other issue with railings is you're going to have a huge cost involved if you want to have a railing that some 300-pound guy wants to sit on or lean against or whatever. In my case, you guys have, in my section of the sidewalk, you've got wonderful sidewalks, what's 25 feet wide at the sidewalk at the intersection. So if you have music and whatnot, and it's a beautiful day, then I just move the tables out there, rather than be committed to it. All the ABC requires is you tell them where the boundary is, and that's all they need. They don't need anything else for alcoholic beverage control. So if you draw my official license out to the curb, and then it doesn't matter where you go, you're responsible for the conduct of your people, just like you would be inside. I think there are plenty of ordinances on the books for public intoxication and everything else as far as walking off and walking down the street with open containers for the police and the ABC to deal with. And if you have people that are going to cause problems then at their location, then you have ways of dealing with it. I don't think you guys have to have all the regulation to try to contain it. I think most places that have gone the way have gone the other direction. There are a lot of advantages from the restaurant perspective of having an enclosed area to control flow. But I don't, with the sidewalks that we have, I don't know that I anticipate that's the direction I want to go, because you have such wonderful sidewalks to do all kinds of things with. I mean, just like when you have Dalton Defender Days, I mean, there's nothing, you got all kinds of different people moving in, and so you're not going to be able to put tables where you normally would anyhow, because you've got vendors there. And it'd be a perfect time not to get stuck with your, because once you draw the line, the ABC won't let you move the line. So you'd have to go do a temporary permit and file for it and everything else. So,
Peter, I got a question for you. You brought up Dalton Days, and I hadn't thought about that. Wouldn't the railing help you during Dalton Days to keep people out of that area so that you can?
Depends how it gets set up. I mean, I don't know what they're, right now, we usually have vendors down the side in front of the building on down both sides at the current situation. And if it's like it's been, we'd prefer to be sitting out in the sun, so.
Well, I would assume if this thing is passed and you bring, and I could be wrong here, I would assume that he makes an application, he is granted that area to use, then and he puts up railing, there isn't no vendor that can come in there and use that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah, that's correct.
I would personally, I've been looking into this and looking at other towns and cities that have outdoor dining and sidewalk dining, and I would like to see us ease into this, and what I mean by that is I would like to see us implement an ordinance without the fence requirement and see how it works. And then if we feel like, 12 months from now that well, we need something to border the area, then we come back and tune up the ordinance at that point. I understand from his standpoint the expense that a wrought iron fence can generate, and so in my mind, I ask myself, what is the fence, what purpose does it really serve? And frankly, it doesn't stop anybody from handing a drink to somebody else. There's no real practical reason to have a fence other than it's just a neat little border. I would love nothing more than to drive through our downtown on any given night of the week and see tables with people sitting at them on our sidewalks and see our downtown so crowded that you have, frankly, that you have trouble getting through. I mean, that's what we want ultimately. And he's not going to set, he won't set tables up in a fashion that's going to make it difficult to get in and out of his restaurant. And I think what I'd like to see us do is take out the part that references the fence and see how it works. And that way, if it works without a fence, we're good to go. Another concern I have about a fence, in his particular instance, he's on a corner lot, and there's a lot of real estate sidewalk-wise between his front door and the corner.
That's gotta be almost, I
And,
don't know,
you know,
Scott, 30 feet to the corner?
Yeah, and I don't want to require him,
Something like that?
I didn't step it off, I can't tell you.
I don't think it would be fair to him at this point to require him, and I don't want to drive by and see a fence on the corner. I would just like to be able to drive by, see people out there, on the 10 days of the year that we have decent weather that I'd be willing to sit outside and eat in. Out there at tables, dining, having a good time. I think we can get to the point where we start regulating too much. And I know there's been discussion about paper cups or plastic cups. Again, I'd like to see us let the restaurateur and the owner make the decision about how they're going to serve their drinks. Let's give it 6 months or 12 months, revisit it, and see if there's been an issue. And then we can fine tune it if we need to.
I got another question for you, Peter. Would you actually take the tables in at night? Is that what you've got in mind?
I already have tables and chairs. We've done this, we've just been sitting outside. We haven't been doing anything as far as alcohol.
Right.
Because
But
I can't.
you'd actually take them in every night and, okay. I would go along with that, Don. Just try and see what happens.
Because there's no advantage to me. I mean, I've got to make it so Dr. Alder can get to the restaurant. I mean, so, that has to happen. So from my perspective, our big parking lot is to the south, so I really don't want to block. I mean, that's where most people are going to park. So they have to walk up from, up Walnut. So I don't want to take it so they can't get through.
Now, kind of dovetailing on that, I would like to see, if we're going to not have a fence, has been proposed, I still would like to see a diagram of the proposed seating area.
I mean, because if I have my choice, what I'm going to ask the ABC for is, and you guys have to, or someone in the city has to, I guess officially, after you guys approve it, is a permit out to the curb from my border to the other end. I mean,
Sure.
That's the easiest way to police than saying 4 feet from the curb. Because as the ABC agent told me, I mean, when this happened years ago in Chanute, they just asked the city, and the city said yes, and they put tables on the sidewalk outside Safari Bar and Grill. But I mean, they have narrow sidewalks, and they just got a letter from the city, and the permit went to the curb. And he said, if you have someone with a drink steps off the curb, and odds are that if you get to him before we do, you won't get a ticket. But if we get to him before you do, then he gets a ticket and you get a ticket, because he gets a ticket for open container, and you get a ticket for letting someone leave your premises with a drink. So, but that's all they cared about, was where the boundary is. They need to know that. That's all they care about.
And I know some reservations have been expressed by some on the commission about, who's responsible for people that get overserved. Can you address that issue, that it's in your interest as the person whose name's on that license to not overserve people?
Well, I think the minimum ticket's $1,000 these days, so.
Yeah.
And serving to a minor, I think, is over that. They tend to get reduced to 1,000, but I haven't seen any fines recently, but.
And if it got, if you were completely irresponsible, and you lost your license, I mean, what would that do to your business?
Yeah, it's tough, you get to have no alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a huge percentage of our business is alcohol right now. It's, I know we're under 20%, I think, but I do think that for downtown, you ought to promote downtown rather than, I know it's tempting to look at the businesses and I know there's some issues I don't want to discuss at this point in time, but I think that, you know, we need to look at the ordinance for the ordinance sake, not for the businesses that are currently there, just for the general direction that downtown goes. I mean, if a jazz club comes in, then, you know, that'd be wonderful to be able to sit outside, have jazz band on the corner and be able to, you know, have tables out there. It's not quite the same as a beer bar, but, you know, but you can't, I don't think you can build a regulation that will cherry pick what goes on there. I think you have to build regulation that says we can control it, either by the police department or the ABC or the, you know, those are all enforceable. And the biggest threat that everybody has is your liquor license. You know, one, A, you get big tickets, or B, they just end up losing your license because of violations.
You guys got any comments?
Gary, what is the process for this? Does it go to planning and zoning and then us, or just straight to us? I'm just wondering.
This can go straight to you, it's an ordinance. It wouldn't necessarily hurt to have that.
Are you talking, Commissioner, about if he comes up for a license, whether or not it comes to us or P&Z? Or are you talking about right now, this ordinance itself?
Who it goes to first? If he wants to do this, then he'd have to go for the planning and zoning first?
No, the site plan goes to the city planner's office. The application itself, just like any C and B license, goes directly to you.
Well, I would still, I'm not in favor of carte blanche clear to the curb, because then there's a possibility of pedestrian infringement at some point. What was the number, 4 feet? You know, need to be able to guarantee pedestrian traffic on both sides, on both Walden and 9th Street. So I'll give up on the railing, but I still would like to see a site plan that includes provisions for a minimum 4-foot pedestrian walkway.
And I would even go a little bit further than that. I mean, commercial areas typically have wider sidewalks because people tend to walk in bigger groups. I would not make it the same as a residential sidewalk. If you were gonna try and save that walking space, make it to where a group of 4 or 5 people can walk together, make it like a 6 foot. You've got 30 feet in this instance.
But you don't really have, if you look at it, say if you have a 4-foot table, 4-foot table is gonna require at least 7, 8 feet for a 4-foot table with chairs. So you have about, I think 11.5 feet to the edge of the awning, but you also have, I don't know how big they are anymore, the grass squares that are there that you have to get around. So to say that you're gonna have a permanent or a fixed 4-foot wide easement, I don't know that that's gonna be how realistic that's gonna be. You know, that you have precisely 4 feet to get through there. Because you've got a whole bunch of grass that you really don't want people cutting and walk, you know, hopefully we're gonna get things planted on them, that type of stuff, so. But, and I understand your issues with easement, but like I said, it's my best interest to make sure people can get to my restaurant. And the other thing that with the original thing with railings is that, yes, a lot of restaurants like it because it controls where you have to go through the restaurant and people know that you're out there and you get seated out there rather than just walk up and sit down. So there are some advantages to railings, but for right now, I'd like to be able to have the option of, you know, if it's a nice day, be out on the corner. If you got music out there, Dalton Defender Days, be able to move out to the corner. Just because that's where all the action's gonna be. But it is, even though it's wide, you do have, because of the jigsaw nature of the pieces and the trees and everything else, it becomes somewhat of an issue.
Chris, you got anything you want to add?
No.
I'd like to move to approve ordinance number G-13-02 for first reading, subtracting out any references to fencing and requiring let's start with a 4-foot walkway. And again, if we feel like that's not wide enough, we can revisit it at a later point.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Edwards and seconded by Commissioner Kessler to approve ordinance number G-13-02 for first reading, deleting the portion on the fencing and requiring a 4-foot wall. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Kessler,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye?
Mayor George.
Aye.
Since I didn't get a chance earlier, I do want to say two things. The cleanup thing was just a wonderful project. I think that's just spectacular for Coffeyville. And two, I hope you guys will take under advisement about stopping people from cutting down trees on public property for various reasons. So, I think there's way too much of that's going on. Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate your
you,
help.
Peter. We don't get to say this very often. You have one of the anchor businesses downtown, and it's been kind of a, well, I mean, it's an anchor to our downtown, and I know I talk to a lot of people that come through town and visit, and they enjoy coming down there and eating, as well as a lot of people who live here, and I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate you doing business here, and you have a fine business. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item, resolution number R-13-45, a resolution to approve agreements with B.G. and Sons, Virgil Parker, for lot mowing for the 2013 growing season. Code Enforcement Officer Tammy Dixon will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We are here to present the 2 contracts that have been drawn up and have them approved for the contractors that have been chosen to complete the work for 2013. We did go through a process, and we recommend that Virgil Parker be awarded the bid for the city, and that B&G and Virgil Parker be awarded the bid for the private lots.
I'll move to approve resolution R-13-45 for adoption.
Second?
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to approve resolution number R-13-45 for adoption. Commissioner Kessler,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
Discussion on purchasing policy. You can't leave.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Wait a minute, everybody's leaving, I'm gonna go leave too.
And Paul.
Good luck.
Mayor and Commissioners, we have before you tonight a new proposed purchasing policy. This is a collaborative effort with staff to improve what we have for current policy. It more clearly defines our procurement or purchasing procedures for all of our purchases and contracts with the city. We've had some purchases in the past where we've had trouble operating in the policy that we currently have and having issues using that document. So we researched what other communities have for this type of policy, kind of took the best parts out of their policies and created what you have before you tonight. It adds some details that we haven't had before, change orders, changes in scope, specifically things like the disposal of assets. We've not had that in a written policy in the past. It adds, or it has several similarities, such as the same dollar thresholds as what we currently have. It maintains the 5% local business preference, those type of items, but it does have several additions to provide clarification and guidance to staff for things that come before the commission. It We feel that it provides a more comprehensive, user-friendly document and gives more direction for us to follow while making those purchases and contracts. Again, it's purely for discussion this evening. If you have issues or questions, we'd be glad to answer or discuss any of those things with you tonight.
What do you think?
I'd just like some clarification, and it might take Chuck to do it. When one of our employees is out and they need a new shovel handle or something, what's the process they have to go through? Or a new shovel, or tape, because I got caught that one time on tape measures. So the public can hear you.
Well, they would get approval from their supervisor to purchase it, and we check prices periodically. They wouldn't, every time they need a tape measure, go to 3 locations. I mean, that would be counterproductive. And that's basically.
Basically then, what you're telling me is, they tell the supervisor they've got a broken tape, and the supervisor says, well, we bought it this place the last time and it was a good price, you can go there and pick it up.
Right, and periodically we'll check prices to make sure. And he wouldn't always tell that person, go get it, you know. He might wait, and if there's other tapes, and so that they can make one trip and make more than one purchase in a
So
trip
normally that
sometimes.
employee doesn't take off right then and go get the item?
Unless it's something he needs right that
Right
minute
then,
that we
okay.
don't have in stock or that he could borrow.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Just a question on page 6 of 13 on your document there, under section 4, changes in scope of work. Here this evening, the commission was approving a change order for $7,000, and this says a change in scopes, $25,000 is the magic number here. So what was the number prior, or was there one, or was there just a requirement that everything come to the commission? Because what this says is, the city manager, is it the city manager, would approve anything up to $25,000. Is that correct?
And more to the point, should there not also be a kind of an and/or with a percentage in there perhaps? I mean, the change order today was only 2.25% over and above the pre-approved amount. So in the grand scheme of things, 2.25, I mean, that's not a lot of, that's not a big percentage.
Right.
But
And I think the answer to that, I think our current policy is fairly silent on that, and that's why we
Which is
wanted
to say there
provide
isn't
some
one?
clarification that you've given me the spending authority of things up to $25,000 don't need to come to you. So why would a $7,000, 2.5% on a big project thing have to come to you? A change order like that is something that was work that was done 2 months ago anyways.
So would it,
You've given me the spending authority on those other things already, and we just wanted to add clarification so that this is something that might not have to come to you. And we are cognizant of the budget and always looking for, as you said earlier, ways to.
so would it be, using your own example that you just mentioned, would it be more appropriate to have a dollar amount or a percentage of project?
We went with a dollar amount because I have that spending authority right now up to $25,000 without those things having to come to you. We could put a percent in there. Right now it goes, and that would be whatever you felt was reasonable as a percentage of a contract. But right now, we just went with the dollar amount that you've already granted in the other parts of the purchasing policy.
I'd rather see the dollar amount, not a percentage.
I have a question. Are we looking to discuss this tonight, or are we looking to approve this
No,
tonight?
just discuss.
Just discuss.
Okay.
And I would remind you that one of the items on the residential survey was the stewardship of public funds, and that's very much why you're seeing this now. Staff's been working on this for a few months. We thought that might be a concern. It turned out it was. And we're just trying to do a better job of defining things and making sure that instead of a, for lack of a better term, a purchasing memo that we have now, we have things that are clearly spelled out with regard to sole source, cooperative purchasing agreements where we can work off of something that the state's already put together, or we can work with the county or other organizations in buying things, you know, and working together. There's a lot of different things that go into this. As Stephanie said, we really did borrow the best parts of several purchasing policies that other communities have spent a lot of time putting together.
Okay. I could go along with the dollar amount, with the proviso that on these change orders, that city staff tracks the contractor and change order amounts as a factor, looking at the original bids that were submitted, and see if there is a pattern that develops with a particular contractor. You see where I'm going?
And typically, when we're in the selection process, that's one of the things we ask for, examples of recent projects and what the percentage of change orders were, so that we can see whether or not they've had high amounts of change orders in work that they've done for others. Because as you said, some contractors will come in and lowball something knowing that they can change order you to death and end up at a higher amount than what would have been the low bid.
And that's my point, to prevent that from happening. Okay.
I know that we're just discussing this tonight, but it is my preference that before I change something, I know what I'm changing. Me personally, I haven't seen the current policy, so.
You got it tonight.
I emailed that earlier this afternoon.
Well, then I haven't had time to review the current policy.
It won't take long.
Okay.
I understand what Chris is saying, and I have not looked at it. I just glanced very quickly because we got it just before the meeting. Is it long enough where it needs to be highlighted, the different changes in here? Or is our old policy so vague that there's nothing there to look at?
The old one's pretty vague. I think if you look at that one and look at this one, you'll see the difference.
Okay.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Anything?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. All right, thank you. Comments from commissioners and staff.
I'd like to start, I said earlier, we have a meeting with the architects tomorrow. When we get some revised plans from them, they're supposed to bring those tomorrow. I'll make sure and get those out to you. I think we've got it pretty well narrowed down for all 5 of the buildings, what they're looking at and what they think that scope of work will be. I'd also like to say that I have been working very closely with MAC on a couple of economic development projects that, you know, obviously we're not going to talk about them in a public forum, but that relationship is much improved over what it had been, and we're working together very closely on a couple of things that will hopefully bring some jobs to the community. On the economic development front, I do have some bad news. I received an email from Ricky Hayes of Retail Attractions. Our agreement with them is up, and they have chosen not to seek renewal.
Oh, gee.
Darn.
So I thought I would share that. I don't think staff has any other comments, except for Cindy.
The pool, they're working on the pool. If you've been up by there, you would notice the frog is in place. I understand they're starting to fill it tomorrow, and it will open May the 25th.
Are we doing the same schedule as last year?
Yes. The same hours, yes. Same price, same
Well, last time we started earlier, I didn't know because of the drought and everything. Last time we were going to do the same schedule again or not.
You don't want to say anything about your cleanup?
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
I try not to get too long-winded, but I saved all my comments until this portion of the meeting. That way I didn't take up other people's time that they had their presentations. But you guys did a really good job, Chief, Fire Chief, and the code enforcement officer. I mean, there's not enough that I can say. I was down there. I mean, you guys, the turnout was tremendous. The volunteers were tremendous. The city staff came together and worked like you wouldn't believe. For the people that didn't make it down there, we had people lined up clear to 11th Street. Police department, they did their came through and made sure nobody ran into anybody or did that. And I think that the one lesson that we learned is that next time, I think the chief and I probably need some sunblock to take with us. And I know the local businesses, they came through and helped and were there to assist. And I mean, there's not the words that I can say to express the gratitude that I can express that, I mean, you guys did an outstanding job, right? And I appreciate it. Thank you. The other issue that I'd like to discuss is I had a discussion with some citizens about their, if we have a planned water turn off where we're going to turn the water off to a certain part of the community, that it may behoove the city to let the citizens in that particular neighborhood know that that water is going to be turned off at this particular time. And the reason that I bring this up is there was a particular neighborhood that, and I understand you got to turn it off at some time, but 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody woke up to take their showers to go to work, and they had no water because the city had turned it off to do some type of a scheduled repair. It wasn't a repair that, you know, catastrophic, something just happened. I believe it was a scheduled repair for whatever reason. That was a concern that was expressed to me, and I said that I would bring it to the city's attention, and I think that I've done that. The other thing that I would like to, and this is probably not the proper forum to discuss this, so I'll just waive that discussion. That's it.
Marcus, you got anything?
No, sir.
I have a couple of items. I think I mentioned this before, but it is the mowing season, and driving around town, I continue to see volumes of grass out in the street. And when the rains come, as it's projected to tomorrow night, that's all going to wind up in the storm sewer and storm system. And we need to be a little more proactive in making the folks here in Coffeyville aware that they're not to blow all of that grass, clippings and debris into the street, because that clogs up the stormwater system. Second item, and this was mentioned to me by one of our, and I'll call him a Coffeyville resident. I suggested he move inside the city limits so he could vote on these issues. Max, if you're watching. Some of the homes around Coffeyville, you can go drive the streets and you can see that they are in reasonably good, there are some that are in reasonably good shape, but it's obvious that they're vacant. And the question has come up, how many of those are homes that were previously occupied by elderly residents of Coffeyville who are now living in one of the nursing homes and have become a financial ward of the state under Medicaid? And those homes are under state control, but they can't do anything with them until the property owner expires. Is there a way to investigate to see if there are, in fact, any homes that are in that category And rather than just having them sit there and deteriorate and fall apart, and then wind up on the tear down list, if there was some way that we could work with the state to get our hands on those houses, perhaps do a little rehab, maybe just a coat of paint, and then flip them and put them back on the market so that they are saleable. State would get their money, the city would get a reasonably priced piece of real estate, and get a piece of property back on the tax rolls. I don't know at this point, it was just sort of a what-if discussion at lunch today, but I think it's something worthy of at least taking a look at, even if it was just a small handful. Some would be better than none, but I don't know how to approach that from this point. It would take some investigation.
Yeah, and that's what I would say, is that we can look into that and see if there's a way to find out what those houses are. I know that Tammy has a pretty good list of what houses are vacant, and we have a pretty good idea of those houses, which ones are livable and which ones are past the point.
Just as a
find that,
past,
I think would require, finding out from the county who owns the houses, and then finding out where those people are and what their current status is.
I think as a starting point too, a coordinating point, reaching back to my previous life, as SRS might be a starting point as well, trying to find out who's where and who owns what. Next item, sort of closing the loop. Several weeks ago, I had received a couple of emails from some of our residents regarding the Elmwood Cemetery, and we've already had our discussions about this, and that's for the benefit of those who gave me the emails and the residents who live in the vicinity of Elmwood Cemetery. We've had discussion with the city manager, and we're going to start locking up Elmwood at dark now. So that will at least minimize some of the mischief that had taken place down there in the past. And I just wanted to close the loop with those citizens who are concerned about that.
That brings me to another thing that I forgot. 2 weeks ago, we had a vigorous debate over basketball goals, and we came to the conclusion that we were going to institute a public service, basically campaign to make citizens aware of the stance of the city on basically where the city stands on basketball goals in the street, that it's a violation of the city ordinance, etc. Where do we stand on that?
I haven't done anything on that yet. I will get with Tony.
Okay.
What I can say is that we have posted on our Facebook, and that's about the only public outreach we've done, but we have addressed it with our officers, and basically the direction was to continue to enforce it as we have. If we find people playing in the street, we're asking them not to play in the street and directing them not to. But we've gone a little bit further than that, and when we find a basketball goal in the street, we're contacting the residents and asking them to move it. If they don't move it, or they fail to move it, or if they don't move it in a reasonable amount of time, then the officers have been providing me those addresses where those goals are. I've sent 3 letters to 3 different residences so far, and we've had some success. I know there's still some out there. I'm sure that you guys could probably tell me locations. So if you do see them and we haven't gotten them moved or addressed, please let me know. And I send a respectful letter asking them to move it and explaining the dangers of playing in the street. So. On the enforcement side, I think the officers have been doing a very reasonable and prudent job with their discretion, and I think we've had success with moving goals, and then we will do some to increase the public service announcement part of that as well.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
To executive session.
No. There's not one.
There's no-
Do you have a
I do
reason?
have an item for executive session.
Okay.
5 minutes.
For what purpose? You have to state, it's state statute.
Yeah.
To discuss, what is it?
Non-elected personnel.
Non-elected personnel.
Okay. You want a break before then, and then we go into session?
5-minute break, 5-minute session.
Okay? So that means we'll come back, let's say, at 8:20.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to adjourn to executive session for discussion of non-elected personnel. To reconvene on or before 8:20 p.m. and that will include a 7-minute break. All in favor?
Aye.